I can't believe my husband would do this on our wedding day, but I guess it's his way of dealing with nerves. Ipschchubbits peeked into the dressing room, and there they were, Jake and Rachel, tangled up with no clothes on. Emily's whole happily ever after wedding display is just cruel. What's the main attraction anyway? Saying it's not me? It's ironic because Emily doesn't look like the star either. No matter how much she dresses up, she's just a plain Jane making a spectacle of herself. I was the one caught up in the wedding fever until now. My heart was racing, but seeing Jake and Rachel, it suddenly calmed down. Rachel looks more fitting in her indecent state than any white dress. They've insulted me enough, so why not make them today's main attraction? My name is Olivia Miller, and I'm 32 years old. I met him at his social gathering, and after a year, he finally proposed. But not in a fancy restaurant with a sparkling diamond ring, but in our usual pub. His name is Jake. We are both straightforward people. Let's keep this going. We toasted with beers, and even though he proposed, we didn't get married right away. He respected my wish for a modest wedding, so we planned it for a year later. Touring various wedding venues and bridal fairs was a fresh and fun experience. Being called groom and bride made us blush and smile at each other. I had heard about it, but I never realized you can't just rush into a wedding right after deciding to have one. Yeah, I thought a year later was way too far, but it's actually okay, right? And the cost we thought was a joke turned out to be real. There's a reason the wedding is set for a year later. Here's this month's share. Thank you. You got it. On skirts. I handed over $1,500 to Jake. He quickly counted the bills and pocketed the money. Bertz, this is for our wedding in a year. We each contribute $1,500 every month, and by the end of the year, we should have saved up around $40,000. Jake is in charge of managing it. $1,500 a month is a lot, but we can do it because we both live with our parents. By the way, which venue looks good to you? I guess your mom's place is nice, right? Actually, my mother works at a wedding venue. I was worried Jake would feel awkward at my mom's workplace, but he was the one who insisted on it. The venue was really nice, and it's a big help that they'll give us the family discount. Jake is practical like that. This is how our wedding preparations went smoothly. We've already met each other's parents. We wanted the atmosphere to change completely. No way Jake is getting married for real. That's hilarious. As usual, I was visiting my in-laws when she barged in without introducing herself. She pointed at me and laughed. Is this who you're marrying? Well, I guess that's about right for Jake. She's a young and cute girl with soft curls and glossy lips. In contrast, I was in a hoodie and barely any makeup since I wasn't going anywhere. Her words made me angry, but I wasn't dressed to talk back with confidence. It was frustrating, but I was annoyed inside. After Jake and the girl left, my in-laws apologized. Bricks Tegan, Olivia, we're so sorry. Rachel doesn't think before she speaks. She's always treated Jake like a little follower since they were kids. Maybe she's upset you're taking him away. A cute little girl's follower, huh? Is that why he couldn't stand up for me? Because he can't go against the boss. Be careless for adults? I'm not NCA people involved in the wedding planning. Hey Jake, don't you think these flowers are nice? Yeah, that's nice. Jake was flanked by two women. One was chirping away with suggestions, clearly enjoying herself. Yet she was an outsider, and there I was, the actual bride-to-be, wearing a gloomy expression. It felt like a bizarre scene. The wedding planner, with a vague smile, nodded along to Rachel, trying to include me by saying, "The bride thinks," but was drowned out by Rachel's excited voice. After a while, Rachel glanced back and forth between us. You wanted to dress up and have everybody make a fuss over you, didn't you, Jake? Jake was an alien, too. Even though he seemed so normal up until a moment ago, I couldn't wrap my head around this. It's cool. I love organizing events. I often do barbecues and Christmas parties with friends. And leave the wedding planning to me. You're awesome, Rachel. I'm counting on you. Yeah, I guess at this rate, my wedding will become Rachel's thing. I wanted to scream. No, I hate this, but no voice came out. The more I panicked, the more my throat closed up. Ah yes, sorry, thank you. Then your companion should be leaving, right? Oh yes. My mother was smiling sweetly, yet there was a strong pressure about her. She forcefully sent Rachel home that evening. My mother was shaking her head in disbelief, worried about us. Jake seems like such a serious guy, right? Bringing a woman who looks like a mistress to the wedding planner. What's gotten into him? Jake is Rachel's subordinate. After I explained that Rachel was my cousin and the dynamics between them seemed awkward, he would only respond with, "I think it's fine," to anything asked. Eventually, even his tuxedo was left up to me with a careless, "Do whatever you like." Not just in the planning, but generally he's been pretty indifferent towards me. Maybe the reality of marriage is bringing up all sorts of anxieties. We're probably both experiencing cold feet. I remember my mother once said that many couples fight before the wedding. It's understandable since it's a big change. We're supposed to overcome these little bumps. Why haven't you two done your makeup or gotten dressed yet? You're so plain. I didn't even notice laughing. Rachel was in a stark white dress and a mini skirt above the knee. At that bare-legged, such an outfit would seem adorable to a child about 3 years old, but it's preposterous for an adult. She said she came early to get her hair set at the venue, but still it was too early. I couldn't help but suspect she was here to mock us. Hey, isn't my dress cute? I might even be mistaken for the bride. As we walked down the hall, I stopped in front of the relatives' room. The bride and groom's room is a bright and all-white space. It's luxurious with a bed and a bathroom. Even in the back of the makeup room, we aren't going to stay overnight. When would we even use this? Cheek and I have laughed about it. On the other hand, the relatives' room had a more subdued brown palette. I became curious about that room and quietly opened the door. First, I saw the counter where drinks for hospitality would soon be arranged. It was a tight space, but I didn't need to see to understand what nasty things Rachel was up to from the sounds alone. But the other voice? That should be someone I don't know. This is the best way to relax before the big moment, isn't it? That was unmistakably Jake's voice. I collapsed on the spot, limp in a daze. I peeked into the next room. For mistake about it, Jake and Rachel were entwined naked, Jake burying his face in Rachel's chest. Ready for one more time? Are you sure we have time? Is the groom supposed to be doing this? It's fine. My parents are out. Rachel suited the scandalous look far more than any white dress. They'd spent all this time mocking me. I'd make them the main event of today. After a while, when I stepped out of the dressing room, my mother with a pale face rushed over. I will never forgive this. When I said this firmly, my mother nodded solidly. 20 minutes later, why is Jake trying to forcefully open the door to the family waiting room? But it shouldn't open. I borrowed the key from my mother and locked him in. I even rigged a party. No wonder behind me were all my relatives, Jake's relatives, and even the wedding venue staff. What's the matter? Rachel, popping her head out, seemed to have sensed the tense atmosphere. She tried to pass it off with a thin smile. What's going on, everyone? I was just taking a little tour of the wedding venue, and it seems I got locked in. I was really in a bind. She started making excuses without anyone asking. Jake's relatives opened their mouths with a look of dissatisfaction. We got a call from the groom. They all had their eyes wide open. Jake first tried to grab me by the collar, but then, seemingly conscious of the people around, he awkwardly put his arm around my shoulder. What are you talking about? You're mistaken. Were you dreaming or something? His mouth was smiling, but his eyes were pressing me to shut up. It was like being glared at by a snake, and it was scary, but I continued expressionlessly. It's not a mistake. I saw it. That's why I locked the two of them in this room. Britzed, Olivia, don't tell lies. Jake's mother was looking my way. They're probably bad-mouthing me. Jake's father tried to calm the situation, but no one was willing to listen. A groom cheating at the wedding venue on the day of the wedding is not something you normally hear of. Therefore, it was more plausible that it was the bride's ugly jealousy leading to slander. Jake's relatives pierced me with their glares like needles. Jake, who had been nervous, gained confidence. Look, Olivia apologized to everyone for the trouble caused by your lying. And then my mother spoke up. Take a look in the dimly lit hall. And a sultry voice suddenly filled the air. At the same moment, the intimate scenes of Jake and Rachel were projected on the giant screen. Screams erupted from all around. Rachel stood in front of the screen, yelling, "Stop it! Turn it off!" And the scandalous affair was exposed for only a few seconds, but it made for the most exciting entertainment. Now, I wonder who's lying. I asked in the silent hall, Tiksik. Sarah, do you intend to be the bride in that pure white dress? If you're saying again, what were you and Jake doing in the dressing room? Jake clenched his back teeth. This secret filming. Why? Of course there wasn't a hidden camera at the venue. The answer was simple. I just filmed the dressing room with my smartphone. So, and I sent it to my mom. My mom shook her smartphone to show it. If I confronted them alone about the affair, I'd likely be fooled by the bold Rachel. So I secretly filmed their little rendezvous and sent it to my mom right away. My mom was quick to act, having worked out her way out. Then his mother slapped his cheek. Stop this nonsense. I had actually sent the video to his parents as well. They probably never imagined they'd be shown their son's true colors on his big day as he was about to leave the nest. I thought they might defend Jake, but instead they said, let's gather the family and confront them in front of everyone. That was our cue to take action. Jake and Rachel are relatives because they are family. His in-laws wanted to avoid ambiguity and made a tough decision. Let me go. Don't touch me, Joel protested, looking down. The middle-aged man raised his voice in desperation. It's a lie that you were cheating with Jake, right? Jake, do you love me? Then another man, realizing the situation, shouted, you were messing around with someone else besides me. Rachel still had her head bowed and gave no reply. It seems Rachel wasn't just involved with Jake. It's unbelievable that she was involved with 3 relatives, also close to her. Jake stopped crying and yelled at the man, I'm special. I gave her the most. With everyone in the family looking at her with disgust, it seemed she couldn't even rely on her own parents in such a situation. She probably couldn't even look her parents in the face. Rachel, always seeking attention. Everyone's looking at you now. Aren't you pleased? Rachel's face turned pale and she rolled her eyes back, losing consciousness. Jake grabbed her arm and yelled, hey Rachel, we're not done talking. You cheater. I tapped Jake on the shoulder from behind. You're not done talking to me. Mr. Perfect, buying Rachel's time with my money. He looked up to the sky, still smiling faintly. When he mentioned transferring $1,500 to Rachel each month, it clicked. That was exactly the amount I had been giving him for our wedding savings. How could I forgive him for funneling our future happiness into selfish desires? Please forgive me. Jake looked at me with tearful eyes, repulsive. I had the urge to stomp on his head, but restrained myself. I didn't want to get my shoes dirty. In the end, we called off the wedding. As it was the day of the wedding, we could just pay it from our joint savings. I offered generously, but that was mostly relatives' money, right? We were going to come out ahead with the gifts. I didn't think we needed any savings. So you spent it on Rachel, I finished for him. To Rachel, Jake was not someone she would normally consider dating, but with the wedding looming, she must have felt a sense of loss. It turned out she had seduced him. Are you sure you want to marry such a plain Jane? His mother yelled. What I had been feeling. My parents apologized profusely to me. Jake was dragged back home by my father-in-law. Later on, through a lawyer, I demanded compensation from both Jake and Rachel. The adorable Rachel was apparently the idol of her relatives. Her parents doted on her as well. Even if their beloved daughter messed up, as long as money could solve the problem, her parents might have covered for her. But Jake ran out of patience after the horrendous spectacle. They were left with no place to go. Now that Jake and I were no longer engaged, they could be together openly. Yet all they did was blame each other. They were suffering because of their own actions, not someone else's. Some time has passed since the incident, and I've been enjoying peaceful days. Oh, my life's over, I sighed, still saddened by the shattered dream of my perfect wedding. My mom hit me on the back, snapping me out of it. In your 30s, you're still young. Aptly pressed your wife. You just mope around, she muttered softly and began to prepare for our spa trip right away. Always strong, always dependable. That's my mom. I realized I'm still protected by her. I haven't given up on the dream of marriage yet. I'll build a bright home and become a mom just like her.